Hey there, guys. Alright, today we are back with some more history matters, and this time we are answering the question of why wasn't the British Empire ruled by a British emperor? A short animated documentary by History Matters. I have no clue what the answer is. I do know that the British king was known as the Emperor of India, um, but why they were just a British king in the British Isles and not Emperor of the British Isles, I have no clue. There was a semblance of imperium historically within Britain during the period, during the Anglo-Saxon period, um, in which they would be called Bretonwalda. Um, but I think that title was more similar to the concept of like a king of kings and not necessarily imperial emperor. Perhaps it has to do with the Holy Roman Empire and Charlemagne. Perhaps it dates to that. I don't know. Perhaps they did not wish to call themselves emperor because that was a Roman title and they were not given the permission or whatever for a time. I don't know, but then why didn't they do it when they split from the Catholic Church and became Anglican? No clue. Hopefully, History Matters has the answer. Let's dive in.
When someone rules an empire, they normally take the title emperor or empress. Yet, despite having a pretty chunky empire, the British monarchs were never styled as the British emperor or empress, which raises the question, why? Why wasn't the British Empire ruled over by a British emperor? Now, it's important to note that most emperors didn't simply convert their title from that of a king. Many had adopted it on top of their previous titles, and others did so after major change in government. Furthermore, it often claims to be the continuation of a previous imperial title. Britain never had any of this, and so there was no pretext to change the royal title when their role and the type of government that they led
So I'm a little bit correct.
it was the same as always. In fact, when there was a major change by the monarch, that of Henry VIII declaring England's separation from the Catholic Church, it was written into law that England was effectively from that point onwards an empire, and that Henry and all of his successors would carry the rights and status of emperors but would simply use the title of king instead.
So again, going off of that, the split from the Anglican Church, I'm a little bit correct in my hypothesis of it kind of rooting itself in the idea of a successor state to Rome, in which the British were not, the English monarchs were not wishing to claim, or perhaps they could not claim that because of the continued existence of the Holy Roman Empire and continued existence of the Eastern Roman Empire. Maybe there was some political bits there, maybe notes and stuff of history that we have lost to time that would give us that answer. I don't know.
Another reason was somewhat more particular to Britain. You see, after the 17th century, the British developed an extreme allergic reaction to absolute monarchy, and a title like Emperor screams, I'm a king of kings, and thus in charge and won't be sharing much power with anyone, which to Parliament was a no-no. Another reason was that Britain itself wasn't seen as being some multi-ethnic empire in the same way as Austria-Hungary was, but in the eyes of its rulers, Britain was a nation of nations who were all equal. Theoretically, at least. In practice, not so much. This is one of the reasons why George III, when offered the title of British Emperor in 1801, refused it. And another was because he was an elector of the Holy Roman Empire at this point, and so an emperor electing another emperor whom he would hold some allegiance to was just a bit silly. This wasn't the last time that the topic of imperial titles would come up. You see, as of the 1870s, there were a lot of emperors in Europe, and the title of emperor outranks that of king or queen, which upset Britain's Queen Victoria, who didn't want to be seen as everyone's inferior. At this point, a monarch adopting an imperial title with respect to Britain was unacceptable, and so the sitting Prime Minister, Benjamin Disraeli, offered to give a different imperial title, that of Empress of India. The reason why this was okay was that 1. India was the crown jewel of the empire, and the one which Britain was most proud of. 2. It was made up of many smaller kingdoms and principalities, and so the title could maintain the implication that it meant King of Kings. And 3. India and its people weren't seen as being equal to those of Britain, and so absolute rule over them was just fine. But why not extend it
Okay. Kind of lining up with what I had been saying earlier.
To the rest of the empire? Well, much like Britain, places like Canada and Australia had the same anti-authoritarian position. And as for the rest of the empire,
And they were white.
well, it wasn't seen as being prestigious enough to warrant the title of emperor. There was still opposition to the title from many liberal politicians, but it was brought into force in 1876, and Victoria's successors would all thereafter be Emperors of India until its independence in 1947, which is why Britain and the British Empire didn't have an emperor, but only one part of it, India, did, and for just over 70 years. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
And that was why the British Empire was not ruled by a British emperor, a short animated documentary by History Matters. This was fantastic. I think he answered it perfectly. I don't think there's a better way to have answered it. I think any longer, and it would just felt long-winded and repeated bits, repeated notes and stuff. I think this was just what it needed to be. I loved the political implications of it, like how it's really just kind of silly. Why, like the British king and queen was essentially an emperor and empress, but they just didn't want the baggage associated with the title. But they also wanted the benefits of it, and so they're like, oh, let's do a workaround. Brown people, they're not our equals. You're the emperor of them. Nowhere else though. Like, okay. But that was that. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.